Weird. Don't see it. Here we go. Ah, there we go. All right. So I'll go ahead and go on for maybe an hour. Hopefully no more. But we'll see. Hey Ben, how's it going? Let's see. There we go. I really gotta focus on coffee or something. But Coke is just so simple, and I don't like it at all. Open topic. First entry, Ben. How you doing, Ben? And you're muted. Yeah, no problem, Dave. I can never sleep early. Which reminds me, I need to reply to something in Discord. I can't hear you, Ben. You want to test your mic out?
Yeah, hello? Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, it's a little low, but
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right. How are you doing tonight, man?
All right, same old.
Okay.
Always have issues. There's Aeolus too. How's it going, Aeolus? We'll wait for Aeolus to fix his mic too. Give me a second here. So I'm doing some work while I'm I wouldn't even call it work. Stuff. While we're getting ready. Aeolus, you there? We can't hear you still. What the heck did they...
It took me a second to get my stuff situated when I got... Always kind of does. So what's going on in Nebraska? What's the local news? Is it boring there? Is it slow there? Anything happened since you've been there that was interesting? Or
No, not really.
that let you get a feel of what politics is like there, what the culture is like there? I guess you have you said your wife's family has family there? Is that right?
Yeah, in Omaha, it's pretty much the same as everywhere else, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Middle America, kind of a SAE, kind of Christian situation.
Probably, yeah.
Like SAE is just standard American English, like in terms of pronunciation. Like,
yeah. It's
people give Missouri credit for being Missouri is kind of a place like they college recruiters like sell Missouri that to international students, like, oh yeah, you come to Missouri, you're gonna learn a standard English.
yeah. Let's see. Sorry. I mean, you can keep talking. I'm listening. I just really don't have much to say yet, just because I'm reading up on stuff. Well, what have you been researching lately?
Freaking nothing. I haven't been being very productive, honestly, to be honest. I've been trying to direct myself to listen to a little bit of some old audiobooks that like some philosophy and stuff. I mean, these readings. There's some readings on LibriVox that are terrible. There's some readings that like these people should be on Audible, are getting paid for their work, and then there's like some okay ones. But at the same time, I think like when you're talking about literature and things, writing, it would be really ideal to hear it in the author himself or herself's voice and actual like reading it, like them doing a reading of it. You're not going to get that for a lot of classic stuff. But I'm going back and listening to some philosophy and stuff, on audiobooks, because I find myself too often just like worried about what's been released today. What's the new stuff? What is some celebrity saying on Twitter in the last hour or two? Or what's live or what's on YouTube. So whenever I'm bored, I don't have anything to do, I'm trying to direct myself to be productive. You know, there's so much history to get into. There's so many there's web of stories, a lot of interviews I could read, or Alan Saunders on the Philosopher's Zone down from that Australia old podcast. That was amazing. Like there's all kinds of archives of that crap I got to get into. So I'm just trying to remind myself not to be bored, not to despair, to stay active, to keep learning. But unfortunately, I really have been doing a pitiful job. I haven't been studying very much. I haven't been learning very much. I've been focusing, just kind of living the day-to-day gruel, I guess, grind, you know, my own version of that.
What news interests you these days? Do you, like mainstream, independent, or just not even focus on?
I believe that, you know, there's something to be said about, you know, when people reference what's his name, Benjamin, what is it that people say on the right, Shapiro, or when people, you know, reference the late Ed Schultz. You know, it's like there's something to be said for those little voices that people credit so much, like Glenn Greenwald. I think if you put all the pieces together, you get a pretty close version of the truth. Like even if you take into account Kyle Kalinski's voice, although, you know, you have to consider that for where it is and what it is. But yeah, when you look at all those pieces, I guess you get most of the picture. At least what you know, where I'm at politically, that's the stuff that seems kind of closest to the truth for me. But honestly, I'm really in the midst of feeling profoundly like we lack actually good media and journalism. As my general feeling is that we really lack that, and I don't really know where to go in terms of getting good news sources that don't waste my time and aren't just so sort of like soaked in political partisan, you know, bias, heavy bias.
Yeah. But it's still good to have each side. Now, I mean, we still have sides, which is, I guess it's always going to be that way. But at least you can always get a different perspective. And sometimes it's just such a polarized perspective that nothing really good can come out of it. It's like
Yeah.
I like red.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's alright. It's like I like red, and someone else says I like blue. It's like, well, should we like team up and make purple? You go, no, I don't like purple. I hate purple more than I hate red. It's like, it's just, yeah.
These the people in the media, the people and the politicians, I think they're pretty different from the people, the regular average Joes and Janes or whatever. Like it's like the people when we come on here and talk, when we're from the left or right, or, you know, kind of regular people talking, it seems like you get a lot different, more friendly, like situation where people can kind of, sometimes, I mean, they're fully partisan and indoctrinated in their MSNBC or Fox or something, but you know, a lot of times though, you find people willing to see eye to eye, respect each other, but the example that they lead us, you know, and to think is what's normal is like, oh, bickering, hatred, enmity, hostility, vitriol, you know, bias, you know, just whatever for the team, save face, don't give them an inch, don't admit to anything, like just completely partisan. Like you're rewarded in the Democratic Party, you're rewarded in the Democratic media for playing partisan games and being partisan, and you're not rewarded for the opposite. So it's like, you know, after decades, you know, I mean, what does this process do? But it's yeah, vicious, and I don't think it really reflects properly the discussion and the sentiments of people. I think it's there to give us our sentiments, you know. I just don't. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about culture, and for recently, what's been on my mind was like that this large culture that we sort of subscribe to, or this like large, you know, corporate national culture of Hollywood and of this sort of that's fabricated and concocted by movies and shows and all this, and you know, that we all kind of buy into with products and with just the national stage. I think it's like a replacement for a more real culture. More real culture is the way culture used to be, and I kind of want to turn to the local right now and turn to being inspired by people locally or something if I can, because I just don't think it's real. I don't think that the large national culture is real. I think it's a thing to buy into. I think it's a thing that, you can get off on that new car smell, and you can, freaking, you can feel fine and feel like you're better than people. But I don't think it's, I don't know if it's, I don't know. I think it's so substantial. Like I think culture is a wrong word for it. Like just not culture. It's so pop and monoculture that it's not even culture anymore. It's something else, and it just doesn't feel right to me. I think when we're trying to be sold this culture, it just doesn't feel like something I want to buy into. So just I don't know, pretty negative. Obviously, pretty kind of cynical view here. But it reforms my political view also. So I just I don't think it's genuine. I don't think the political MSNBC and Fox News people are genuine. I don't think most people do. I don't suppose most people do.
Yeah.
I think that way. But what can we do?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, is just do a little bit of something. But I mean, really, it just gets down to trying to get, just like money's involved in everything. Try to get money away from politics, get money away from the news media or the press, get money away from influencing anything. Because that influence, let's see, just, hi, is that Shirley? Gosh, I can't hear anybody anymore. Shirley? Can't. Well, might be Shirley. Alright, now you got it.
Evan,
Hey Shirley, how's it going? Hey Olis.
it's going fine.
Okay, it's working now.
That's a fair point, though. That last point, Ebon, I do want to say at least. I mean, that's really, it really is the source of a lot of things, money.
Yeah.
And I think it's like money, but it's also a matter of like not allowing for real competition, not allowing for other people to like it's just being so unfriendly to people, to competition. But I think if you don't have real competition, you don't have real vibrance. You don't have real dynamic like growth and progress. That's my opinion. So I think we need competition in media. I think we need competition everywhere. If they got a bunch of money, they got all the money.
Yeah.
Hey, Evan, you remember Tim Russert?
Yeah, I remember him.
Do you think he would have fell in line like the other commentators on NBC? Because they hired his son, and his son left, but he hasn't done any more journalism.
Yeah. I mean, when we see these people, they're not doing journalism anymore, even especially mainstream. I think they've just realized that they just don't want any part of what they're doing. I mean, there are people with principles, except you won't see them very often, especially in mainstream.
Well, I know Ed Schultz said it. I'm going to miss him.
Yeah.
Miss his voice.
It's good. I was hoping to have him on. We'd never be big enough to have him on. But I mean, he always spoke really like the truth. I always wanted to just kind of pick his brain and I mean, I know now that he was big and efficient, but like kind of what made him become progressive? What was it that him and his wife?
His wife made him.
Yeah, I know. Well, I wouldn't say made him. Probably convinced him. But what was it?
They convinced him.
Yeah. Maybe
because their first date was at a homeless shelter.
Oh.
Where she was working.
Yeah.
And he came in a suit, and then he saw all the veterans that were homeless, and it was like he just got so emotional, and he just changed his party.
The the Progressive Party, if it was a party, would include a lot of people.
Mm.
Did you guys hear I'm sure Shirley heard the guy who took the MAGA hat away from somebody and like I think threw like his drink at his face or something like that.
Yeah.
That guy was like a Green Party member in Texas.
Really?
Yeah. Zero Hedge.
What happened in that instance? Did he get charged?
No,
Yeah.
the person should have.
I thought he got arrested.
He got fired. That's all I know. Let's see. Here's the. I'll share the screen.
Gutsy motherfucker, I'll give him that.
It says. Let's see. So this is the incident. There's more data on the guy. I see. A bit better. The screen caps. So people were able to figure out his name. He's Green Party of Texas. I don't know if he's running or anything, but I don't know. Probably not.
Well, he's not representing the Green Party very well.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I wonder if like the Green Party even mentioned anything. That's the
Probably
thing.
not.
Yeah.
I mean, can we be honest for a second that, you know, this isn't just indicative of the Green Party. This is, I mean, any political party that has incidents like this where its members engage in somewhat questionable activity rarely attempt to give statements and formal apologies for the actions of its own party members. And if they do, it's usually just to distance themselves as much as possible. So this isn't, you know, to speak ill of the Green Party specifically. It's just, you know, it's not exactly a standard by which anybody should realistically expect it to be upheld by.
Yeah. One thing about the Green Party, it feels like different areas, different states, the Green Party is something different. You know, it's not really unified into like the Republicans or the Democrats are. I mean, you get one Democrat from one state, same as any Democrat is in any other state. But Green Party, it just feels like you got Green Party in California is gonna be a lot different than Green Party person in Texas or in Tennessee.
Yeah, Gloria Steinem mentioned that some Green Party, she didn't mention the states they were in, they take corporate money.
Yeah. So it's let's see. So tell us.
What if it's a good corporation that likes the Green Party? I mean,
Is there such a thing?
I mean, if they're paying, if they're giving money to the Green Party, I think there might be. Is there?
Yeah.
There's something called a B corporation. Anybody ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
B corporations.
Mm-mm.
I believe that's something to do with being more economic, being more environmental in their practices, sustainable or something possibly.
Well, look, I mean, in terms of socialist critique, I mean, we do try to create some degree of separation between corporate capitalism, where you're dealing with multinational conglomerates, as opposed to small businesses, because the degree and level of exploitation in those systems are two entirely different orders of magnitude. Now, this isn't necessarily to say that small businesses don't engage in the same kinds of exploitative practices as their larger brethren do. They still do, but it's not as egregious to to the degree at which multinational conglomerates like, say, Walmart or McDonald's engages it on a regular basis. And I think that similarly, that kind of falls into this same ballpark as B businesses. Yeah, to some degree, you could say they are better, but really at the root of it, it is still dealing with the same fundamental problems that its less desirable brethren are dealing in. And that's kind
So
of.
are you sure you're not communist?
Huh?
Are you sure you're not a communist rather than a socialist?
Dude, this is pretty common socialist critique. It's not. Here's the thing, let me make this for the clear for the audience so that people understand this distinction. Communism is a form. Communism and socialism have the same sort of relationship to each other as squares and rectangles do. All squares are a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. Similarly, communism is a form of socialism, but not all socialism is a form of communism. That's the key distinction I feel that needs to be made right there.
Well, if socialism is partly capitalistic, then how could communism be part of socialism?
Well, that's the thing. Is that at least in my definition, at least in this sort of socialism that I subscribe to, which as least as far as I've been able to recover, is generally the most widely accepted one within leftist circles. Socialism isn't about the development of a welfare state, unless you're a Bernie Sanders style social democrat. When we refer to socialism, we are referring specifically to an economic system under which the workers have democratic control over the means of production, and that's a wildly different statement than saying, well, we want to keep capitalism, but just have a welfare state hanging over it.
But would you really rid the business, the said business or area or territory? Would you really rid it of basically, sounds crude, but like cronyism? Basically, what I mean is, would you rid it of people being suck-ups and playing politics inside the business, and whoever is friends with whoever gets promoted, and whoever's cousin gets promoted? So then, even though you have a situation where there's a vote and a democracy within each business, you're still going to have cliques, and you're still going to have people manipulate and use it and play it in a certain way based on how it's set up. So it's like, I'm just saying, you're switching one thing out and then like basically replacing it with the same thing. If there's not a working plan, it's gonna transcend that or supersede that or go beyond same problems that we already still have.
Well, I mean, that could be a possibility, and this also depends on how you set it up. I do know that there are factories that were set up in Argentina by the workers, which they managed to capture after a rather prolonged struggle with the owners of the original company that owned those factories, and it took them a couple of years, but they did manage to essentially establish a system under which they could democratically manage the factory amongst themselves. And to my understanding, that factory is still open to this day. So I don't think it's.
I think co-ops are cool. I think co-ops are cool. That kind of stuff's cool. I agree. I agree that it's cool. I'm just saying. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate and things, challenging your definitions.
No, and I appreciate that opportunity. It's I'm certainly not the most well-researched socialist out there, so understand that I can only extend this about as far as my knowledge, my rather limited knowledge pertains. But I don't think that's.
So what you're saying is someday your view might change. Your view might evolve on that. I mean, there's an old saying that says, if you're not young when you're a Democrat, or you're not, or if you're not a Democrat when you're young, or if you're not liberal when you're young, if you're not a conservative when you're past 40, blah 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 blah. Everybody's heard that saying, I think.
I mean, obviously, I believe my views are subject to change. However, Mike, I don't think that the core of my analysis is likely to change that much in the near future. You know, sans a rather significant emotional and political event.
So when I said like if we had a progressive party, a lot of people would be in there. I would assume like what I meant to say was like I think a lot of people from the Greens would feel like they could identify there. I think a lot of people from Socialists, Democrats, or whatever. But instead, like the Democrats have instead done a very good job of keeping every progressive within the realm of Democrat. It's like progressive feels like now like progressive is just a Democrat who's slightly more on the left, more left than so. Does instead of being something separate, it's something that's muddled down and hard to really put. Really, it's kind of vague and it's kind of redundant and been said too much and meaning's lost on it, and it's confusing and people don't even like it. Even progressives themselves don't even like sometimes the word progressive or whatever. So it's unfortunate, but I think that it's unfortunate because I think progressive itself does resonate with a lot of people. It does describe them well. It would be what that camp is. That would be able to be a strong enough number, a significant enough amount of people if they were all together in one place to actually put pressure on the Democratic Party for it to change. But this is a lot of ifs, so it's pretty much meaningless to discuss.
Well, ifs can be overcome if you manage to take them in peace tests. But I think you do bring up a much larger point. Is that the general term of progressive isn't really that significant of a descriptor. There certainly have been attempts to make it such, but that's always been hampered by the Democratic Party constantly co-opting the language of the left in order to make themselves more appealing to what they perceive to be their core demographic, except
right. Pandering and saying the right thing is what it amounts to.
Right. And really, like even to an extent, this even happens in the Democratic Socialists of America. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the DSA in general, but I mean, it is in itself sort of a hodgepodge of varying different factions of leftist ideology. Uniting behind a common goal of sticking it to the Democrats and trying to raise class consciousness so that we could actually have some productive policy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know about the class consciousness thing because I don't know which class you mean, and I mean I think like I don't know if I want to use that same language, but I do think that we're totally screwed here because the Republicans have one asinine mentality and policy and platform, and then the Democrats have a totally inept one. The Democrats have a totally drop the ball one. A totally kind of like divided, let's be fractured because who cares? And then 2020 is going to roll around. We're gonna shame you to try to get your vote, and then when you don't vote for us and we lose, then we're going to blame you, and that whole run around again. I mean, that's the Democrats. And so basically, what are we going to do when we really want something to change?
Well,
basically for us to have a sane, minimum wage or a sane medical or Medicare policy or a sane whatever water policy.
No, it's kind of funny because say what you will about what some might say about the benefits of centrism. I personally think that centrism as a political philosophy is generally overrated because in a sort of paradoxical sense, centrism tends to leave the door open for fascist revolutions to take hold. Or
populist, or I don't know what about populist. I think I would also say I also want to add here that centrist is also kind of synonymous with moderate or swing voter. So I just wanted to throw that out there to be more precise, right? And you said centrist is conducive to a populist. It could, or you said centrist is conducive to like something that could have bring about a fascist uprising.
Here's a pretty famous example, although it's usually not discussed in these details. How many of you know about the Weimar Republic?
Definitely
or have heard the term before? You've heard about it before, Ben?
Yeah, I should know what it is.
All right. So this is the post World War I Germany, German Republic. So after World War One, the various factions of Germany were sort of broken up into disparate factions once again, and so there was a huge debate about how they were going to restructure themselves after during the process of the Treaty of Versailles, and so what ended up happening is that the Social Democrats and the Conservatives got the backing of the centrist Prince, and they came together and they decided on a constitution. Now, the constitution was written primarily by the Conservatives and the centrists, and the idea was that they'd set up a constitutional republic. Very similar to what we have in America, except there were a couple key distinctions. One is that the president of the country had the full power to suspend the regular rule of law in the case of a crisis, and institute martial law. That was part two. Step two is that the chancellor can be given dictatorial power. The idea was that if in the case, because there was after the fall of the Russian Empire to the Soviet Union, there was a huge concern among the European powers that another socialist revolution might be right on their doorsteps. And so a lot of centrists and conservatives, in their infinite and brilliant wisdom, decided the best way to safeguard their republic from the socialist takeover was to institute authoritarian safeguards to shut down the revolution should it ever arise. Coincidentally, those same gaps were then later exploited by Hitler, who basically gamed the entire system to give himself dictatorial power after his supporters may or may not have bombed the German Congress.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one thing I just wanted to say, and I mean, I heard all that, but I was still stuck on the centrist just term and point itself. So, I mean, because another place my mind went with that was a centrist is someone who says, okay, I kind of sympathize here, kind of sympathize there, kind of see what they're saying, I kind of see what they're saying. And so I think that kind of person is actually almost more sane, more balanced. I mean, sort of inherently within the whole thing, almost exactly the same as somebody who's a non-voter and who thinks both parties kind of like suck. Maybe just kind of like glass half full, glass half empty differences only. Yeah, it's just something I was thinking about it. It just depends how I mean, there's just different sort of subtle ways of looking at it all, and it's kind of all one big thing too.
Except that I would put a key distinction on this between non-voters and centrist voters, and then that the centrists are actively engaged in policy decisions. The point of being a centrist,
Engaged
however,
in policy decision. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Because here's the thing. The way they engage in policy decisions are whatever maximizes the preservation of the status quo for themselves. This isn't necessarily for the benefit of other people, except whenever their egos feel they need to be stroked. But it's not necessarily actively attempting to get the protections of other people, like for the sake of minority rule in the same way the right wing typically favors.
Okay. So you're saying though that okay. So you're alleging you're accusing here the right wing of being for majority rule or minority rule, which I'm not disagreeing with. I'm not I haven't really thought about it and I haven't got it to yet. I'll consider it maturely in a moment. But then you're also saying, I'm just trying to be clear. So you're also saying that the people, you really hate centrists, I see. But you're saying that the centrists are, because they're like they're basically, you're equating, what I want to say is you're equating, I feel, these centrists as being the masses, like being like the majority, like they're the majority, but they're kind of like the herd, they're kind of like the sheeple, they're kind of like a bunch of kind of like sort of not so well informed, just kind of like, you know.
It's less that they aren't. It's less that they aren't whether or not they're informed. It's more that they're
or only in pop culture
is to preserve the window for what they already perceive and understand to be the case of reality.
So in that way, the status quo, because that also confused me, because I would perceive most of these people as being sort of like middle class or lower class inherently as being the majority, by definition. So therefore, they would probably be more voting for a dream or an ideal, some kind of outcome, some kind of change, something that's going to turn their life for the better, or improve their life, impact their life for the better, more so than just in sustaining a status quo, which is what you said originally, was that the centrists would like to do. But you're saying that sort of the status quo of things politically, so that they're actually content and happy with things remaining the same. I don't know. I perceive the corporations as the chief agents and people and sort of entities that are trying to keep the status quo, because I perceive that I think that the people that have the most interest are the first ones to the lobbying game, are the ones who never underinvest in their lobbying super PACs, crap like that. So anything, the largest industries, you can assume it's almost a given they're going to be in the pockets of all these people. So then, therefore, like, the policies are going to be shaped most, often and frequently for those megalith, gigantic, massive, monster, whatever it is, Goliath interests, and everything else is going to be sort of subsequent. Well, as long as it doesn't clash with that, as long as it doesn't interfere with that, you pay money too. You're like a lower level corporation, or you're like not as much of a huge player, or massive amount of pull, or whatever it is, finances. So that's the way I look at it. So I think everything is run, everything is rigged, and everything is set up for, and we're in the midst of a long status quo that's set up for the most rich and the most powerful corporations and money, people with the most money. And that's how I see it. Those are the ones that want the status quo, and I think the rest of it is sort of distraction. I think a lot of the stuff that we find ourselves debating, and media wants to suggest that we concern ourselves with, is sort of a distraction. It's like anything but, talking about ending corporations as people, anything but, making Amazon and Walmart and all the rest of them pay their fair share of taxes, maybe even make them pay back taxes. I mean, in Europe, they can sue Google and do, monopoly things towards these people, but why don't we do it here? We're the ones that we could sue them for even that much more,
Except, well, I mean, that also plays into the second bit, is just that the other aspect of which I perceive centrism's main axis of political motivation being is that what minimizes their creates the most minimal amount of destruction of their own lives as possible. Centrists won't necessarily mind if an authoritarian regime is set up per se, so long as it doesn't necessarily impact their ability to just go about their daily lives without fear of retaliation.
But doesn't that describe the 80% of people that, like, the way that you're describing this, isn't it kind of like get at like 80% of people that just need to make money? They have to do what they have to do. It's a call center, it's insurance, it's whatever it is, it's a coal mining, it's whatever it is. It's just out there. You just got to make your buck. And like, it's like, I think if you're saying that anybody who is just for anybody who falls for the rhetoric of either party saying jobs, like Trump, like jobs, that they're a centrist. Would you think that the Trump supporters who voted for him because he said jobs, are those all centrists? And is it because are they that way? Are they so that way?
I don't know if I'd describe Trump supporters as Trump's core base as centrist. What I would describe I do think that Trump appeals much more towards a sort of far right nationalist trend that has been inside the Republican Party for probably the better part of 30, 40 years. But but my critique is less that, but I think people who, I do think there's a difference between the vast majority of Americans who don't participate because they don't see that their own efforts are, um, that any effort that they put into that system is reaping any benefits for themselves versus somebody who's actively trying to game the system in order to reap the benefits for them. Also, I think those.
I guess I do this to you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I think that those two are fundamental distinctions. Maybe what I'm not expressing as clearly as I should is.
I wanted to ask you about nationalists. What you meant by nationalist? Nationalist to me is a vague term. I'm not even sure what it means to me as I think.
All right. So when I typically refer to nationalism, I'm usually referring to a individual or an ideology, or to individuals or an ideology followed by certain individuals, which promotes a extreme devotion towards a cultural identity of a nation state. This tends to common characteristics of these kinds of movements is rampant xenophobia, militarism, a staunch degree of militarism, and a proclivity for violent radical action in the favor.
I think some people do use it like that. I think some people do talk about it like that. Other people, though, like in other countries, it's referred to like, and it could be overlap, but like the nationalist, Evo Morales or Hugo Chavez or something like that. Like those guys were like nationalists because they were referred to as nationalists because they wanted to nationalize oil and different resources in their economies, whatever. So that's why I get that confused, possibly. Also, then there's also white nationalism. So there's different things going on with that word and term.
The other aspect of nationalism is this, particularly the kinds that was propagated by the Nazis and arguably could be seen to some degree in Trump's own rallies, is this sort of idea of fundamentalist nationalism. Where it's a sort of the goal of this kind of breed of nationalism is a sort of return to form, to a perceived better years of a culture.
Mitt Romney, George Bush definitely campaigned to the same banner and the same with those tricks.
Yeah, I mean, they were using nationalist rhetoric in order to elevate political capital for themselves.
So I guess I'm starting to agree with you more because I guess under like what we discussed, it's like kind of like most Republicans are like that. So I guess maybe Republicans, that was your original statement, goes with the original statement kind of sentiment, where you said like Republicans tend to be more nationalist, not because I said they were centrist in terms of, as you said, like they just want kind of like their own well-being in stability and certainty there, rather than give a shit about anything else. And so there's a status quoism of that. Like, I guess what I think is again about that is this, that like, isn't that so damn like forgivable and sympathizable, and like maybe it's misguided, maybe it's not a failure to have long-term or big picture thinking, but it's definitely sort of like kind of like, wow, man, it's just it's simple life, it's people as salt of the earth, like they say, it's like just people just taking care, something pretty relatable about it, I guess.
I personally think that's kind of what makes nationalism kind of insidious. This is because it is kind of it is sort of a feel-good sauce for a populace that has been beaten down by economic and or military wear, or even political wear. When all you've seen for all your life is just nothing but drudgery and frustration, you kind of, or you remember a time, and particularly for older people who were just young enough to remember what the old days were like.
But yeah,
What those perceived old days were like before things changed.
So here's what I'm thinking though. Wasn't Jill Stein calling for jobs? Didn't Obama say infrastructure and jobs? It's just a liberal brand, a liberal version, a progressive sort of deal. Bernie, I mean, so it's like they all call for jobs, and I'm saying that if we can. I mean, I don't know. I just can't relate with like people seeing that, you know. But of course, when it comes with any political issue, you want it to be like something that they're actually going to have follow through. That you want to see them actually, you know, stand for that, not just say the right things, like, you know, not just saying the right things to say the right things to pander, but to actually stand for them and fight for them, and you know, don't quit. You know, it's like, I think like what I want to see in a congressperson, and my congressperson, is for them to like go fight, be really loud, and if they don't get reelected, or if they quit, like Jesse Ventura, or like whatever it was, that Native American that was in and just quit, is like, you know, that's good. That's the way you should do it. You should be like, all right, if I can't do what I want, if it's going to be like impossible, like hands are tied, don't have my back, and it's just into this frustration, fine, peace. You know, I think that's the way. That's what I want to see, is people getting in there like that. You know, because otherwise, what are you doing? Otherwise, you're just lying. Otherwise, you're just like, you might as well be like a Scientologist or like Christian Science person, or somebody walking up to them with some bogus, you know, Mormon fairy tale for them to, I don't know. I'm poking lots of fingers here. Let me just go on and offend every niche or some sector.
Yeah, just offend every niche religion out there. No, I do get what you mean though, and I got.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, do something. Do something that you said. Do something that you fucking feel passionate about. And like, Seema Hernandez seems to be a person like that I think would do that if you gave her a chance.
You know, not everybody has that sort of patience. So, I mean, there is a degree to which I can kind of understand or appreciate that, but honestly, fuck. Jesus. I usually don't like talking about Trump and fascism, because I think that it's often done with hyperbole.
It's just that you were talking about vaguely saying like, well, because you could say, oh well, this happened in Germany now, you know, so then I hate centrists, or you could kind of say, well, this happened, so watch out, Trump could do it. It's the same thing with Trump's. Well, and then as I pointed out though, almost every Republican is using nationalism, so it's not really. I think there's a lot of hyperbole and there is a lot of hyperbole and scare about Trump, and it really does work to a lot of people. But if we take that too far, then we're gonna be in danger, because we think that there is no danger. So I guess it's a balance for me.
Right, and that's really the important thing. Like, the point is, my point isn't necessarily that Trump is the only person who uses this kind of rhetoric. He's not. As much as it would be pleasant for us to think that, you know, it's just this one guy doing it, it really isn't. Trump is using a nationalist fervor that had been built within the Republican Party for the better part of 3-4 decades, maybe even 3-4 generations, in order to push an agenda that is specifically crafted to appeal to those kinds of emotional riles. When you see the detention camps for migrant children, these are extensions of policies that the Republicans had pushed for the better part of 3 generations now. And, you know, regardless of what you'd have to say, and like, and just so that, so that people don't go, wait, but Obama was doing this too. And I would say yes, because contrary to popular belief, the Democrats don't really have a very good record on issues of building detention camps against aliens either. A great example of this comes during World War II, when the great progressive hero Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided that in his infinite wisdom, he would follow his racist general's idea of locking every Japanese American in an internment camp for the entire duration of the war, including those who were born American citizens. And as well as some Koreans and Chinese people, because they all look the same, don't they? So make no mistake, this isn't just a Republican problem. It is a Democratic problem too. But the Democrats, whether you like them or not, don't necessarily bend to the same sort of fervor. At least its base doesn't.
Into the same sort of what? I'm sorry.
Into the same sort of xenophobic nationalist fervor that the Republicans typically are.
Right, but if they're playing identity politics and they're just saying stuff that sounds good because they're self-serving, profiteering opportunist assholes, then what better are they actually? They're not really much better.
No,
they might sound better, but almost in one sense, isn't that much more devious?
No, I totally agree with you on that. No, I was referring specific. I meant to refer.
No, you're right. No, generally they are better. Generally, they actually substantively are better. But there's just too many of the crappy versions, of these kind of turds that are out there just doing it for the public PR stunt and for their own benefit and like how much do we really trust the guy? What's his name? The guy that's out of Silicon Valley, we trust him about as much as far as we could throw him, right? Ro Khanna?
Yeah.
I mean, that's for good reason, right?
No, yeah. Oh, fucking Khanna, man. Jesus Christ.
I mean, he's saying the right things, but is he going to really do it?
No.
Is he going to, I mean, he has done some things that actually do reflect it, but it's like, is that all just for good form? I don't know. We don't know.
To be honest, I'm not holding my breath for him. I would highly recommend not holding your breath for somebody like him. It's not worth the pain and suffering that might come later.
Well, if he is one of the bad ones, then he makes it harder for all the good ones. If he's one of
look, I'm not saying whether or not he's good or bad. I'm just saying that I personally wouldn't invest in whether or not he is good or bad personally, just because politicians tend to be kind of finicky creatures of nature as it is to begin with, before we add in whether or not they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do.
Ro Khanna, if you're listening, you better go extra mile, buddy, to prove yourself like doubly so. And
oh no! If we sent him to Jamal, we'd have to pick up the corpse, and then we'd have to call the morgue. It's just going to be a giant fucking mess. Do you want to have to clean that up?
I don't know if I followed you just there. It doesn't matter. Probably.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, that.
Oh, you're fine, man. You're fine, man.
That was a good one.
Good stuff, dude. It's good conversation. It's nice. It's better than sitting around scrolling through Twitter ads.
I do know that Jamal's audience currently is trying to lobby him to call into the Sam Cedar show right now.
Yeah, that's what's up. If that happens, please screen share it because that'd be fun.
The only problem is that I know where he's getting most of his clips from, and most of them are like from months or even years old. So it just feels like I personally wouldn't do it if I were in Jamal's position. Mostly because the stuff that he'd be having to use would be mostly talking points that are several months out of date. And if I like to think that if you're going against somebody, it's usually smartest to bring their latest, to go for their latest and greatest arguments, because that usually is the best indication of, you know, for one, it's just a matter of intellectual honesty, and the other aspect is just that if you really want to demonstrate that somebody's full of shit, you need to do it with the things that they are taking the most pride in at that moment.
You know, I don't even know. I don't even do that much thinking before I go and talk. If I was going to do it, I wouldn't even do that much thinking, I guess. Or at least I think I wouldn't do that much thinking. Because, I mean, like, honestly, I don't know. I mean, if somebody was to make sense, if somebody makes sense, there's not much you can do about that. So it just depends in the moment if Sam Cedar feels like, you know, making sense or not, or if he wants to back himself into a corner with nonsense, and then you just proceed. For me, it's just like that simple. It's kind of like you never really know. So don't even try. Like, just wait. Like, I just respond. I maybe almost to a fault. So, like, I just hang out on here, and I don't really, like, have really an agenda or things to say. But, like, I got tons of stuff, like, they constitute my opinions and things that I think about a lot. And then when somebody, like, hits on something like that, then I'm like, oh, what about this? And that's kind of how I do it. I don't really. I guess if you were, like, in a situation like where it's Jamal and it's Jamal's show, and then you got more pressure. So.
Yeah.
But generally, though, speaking, sometimes it's kind of nice not to be prepared, to not anticipate, like, to just sort of be in the moment and just play it by ears.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other aspect is that I wouldn't want to be on Sam Cedar's show. You know, like, I hate Dave Rubin for.
I'm not afraid of Sam Cedar. I'd be afraid of Bill Maher. I'd be afraid of Colbert. I'd be afraid of certain ones of them. I'd be afraid of a lot of them.
No.
They're fucking witty and they're
no. It's not
like John Oliver. Like, shit, I wouldn't go near that guy. Like, that guy's like, you know what I mean? Like there's certain people that I don't know if it's John Oliver's wit rather than his preparedness, but definitely Bill Maher. Like, I wouldn't go anywhere near a debate with Bill Maher. I just, even though I know I'm right, I just wouldn't do it. Like, I just would not do it. There's certain people.
It's not.
Like,
it's not.
Almost Joe Rogan's almost one.
It's not a matter of fear. Let me make that clear. It's not a matter of fear. The problem I have with Sam Cedar specifically is that I find him to be an intellectually dishonest and disingenuous hack.
But he's not intellectually potent like Bill Maher. He's not. He doesn't have that prowess. He doesn't have that voice. He doesn't have that. Dude, I've seen him. He's got a long history, and you know, as you get older, maybe you lose that like a powerful. Maybe it's like, you know, as much energy, but I think that he probably compensates for that. Anybody's gonna compensate for that just in raw experience, in data, and just like how much you've heard. I mean, when you if you get to live your life and be around information all the time, and the synthesizing information, and lots of intelligent discussion, you're just gonna have an edge on people. Period. It's why we enjoy it. I think the exercise of it. Yeah.
No, like. I'd be more worried about Bill Maher if I actually believed that he had any moral or moral intellectual equivalence to anybody beyond George Bush.
Well, so you're not worried about sophism skill?
Huh?
You're not worried about his degree of skill when it comes to being a sophist? Because some sophists are freaking brilliant. I mean, Rachel Maddow would probably talk circles around me, and I can talk fast, but you know, it's like some people they're sophists, man, and they can just manipulate. They can just ask questions, frame things in certain ways, make you look dumb, and then as soon as they detect that you're like taken off guard, then pounce, and like, dude, you don't even know. It'd be like some kind of like fighting with Bruce Lee, you know, like you don't even know what happened, and you're on the ground and hurting from every side. I don't know. That's the way I look at it. I guess definitely don't like to underestimate these people, or don't want to underestimate the power of like sophistry and those kind of like intellectuals.
Well, the thing is that Bill Maher is an intellectual in the same way Jordan Peterson is a philosopher, which is to say they really aren't.
I disagree. I still give him credit. I've heard Bill Maher say so many fucking cool things and brilliant things in the past.
You know,
I think it's somewhat definitely undermined by his recent stuff, but it's not all made illegitimate. It's not all made completely worthless or completely. It doesn't like basically cancel out everything he's ever done or said or been, or all of his intelligence that he probably still has. I mean, do you want to keep making millions of dollars a year and knowing everybody, or do you want to retire in shame because you lashed out against Hillary?
I will be happy to retire if I will be happy to retire and hang my hat if I had to. This, which is more than I could say for him. And that's all.
I mean, it's just partisan. It's just hanging with the boys, or it's just like whatever it is. You just stay with your team. You don't like you can't be playing with the Chicago White Sox and you just go over to the Chicago Cubs and be like, or whatever, the Reds or the Boston Red Sox or whoever the fuck, or you know what I mean, Cincinnati, whatever the fuck Reds, you just go to the other team and like, oh yeah, like hey, I'm your friend. I'm gonna go party with you after the thing. Like hey yeah, like let's talking shit on your own team. You can't do that. You just don't do. There's just wouldn't I don't know. There's just just don't do it. I guess at that point when they're that high. But I think it's funny and it's shitty and it's unfortunate because it's their own downfall now. That's their unpinning, or that's their whatever. You know what I mean? Like that is their downfall, that they held on so partisan. Because if they would have just had a few people, like if just like Seth Meyers and Bill Maher, or like maybe if just Bill Maher and one other figure like Rachel Maddow would have like stayed and been like covering WikiLeaks, and everybody else was against them, and they took frack, even if it was all a staged fucking thing, I would still be a Democrat. Because the thing that outrages me and angers me the most, that pricks me the most, is that like not a single media outlet could cover it. Not a single official one would say anything contrary, dared cover it in its proper light and frame and perspective. So like that right there is like indicative. It's implicates, it indicates that whatever else, you know what I mean? Like it's just shows, it betrays that there's this corruption. It betrays that there's this unified, marching orders and official rhetoric, party rhetoric, which is unhealthy, which is artificial to a degree. And it's just disagreeable, and it's not dynamic. It's not something that has, this healthy, undercurrent of, Bernie kind of progressive kind of, really respecting those people, or where they're included at all. It's just shut up, we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to take all this lobbying money. Things aren't going to change. Shut up. We don't care about. But by the way, you still need to be a part of our party so that we can beat the Republicans. What? Like, no, like, why can't we? So like we've deteriorated, the party's deteriorated, the Democrats have deteriorated, the left has deteriorated so much in the last 2 years and fallen apart and fallen into disrepair, and like to where it's not functioning, it's not healthy, it's not it's more centrist, which here's where I agree with you and start hating centrism. It's falling that way, whereas really obviously you'd want it to be healthy, obviously you'd want it to be righteous, obviously you want it to have good principles and ideals and better ones, and ones that aren't just basically for status quo and aren't just for, like, again, I'm kind of agreeing with some of your sentiments, but find itself centered around more helpful policies and issues and principles and stuff. So we're the party's going to hell, and that's its downfall to me. That's its singular downfall. Is it's just like unificate, like it's utter, like one of us, don't deviate from marching orders, hold arms locked, we're all gonna sing the same song and march along. Nobody fall out of form. It's like, I know it's never in the army, but aren't you supposed to like march like just so together? like it's like, oh, you're out of step, like fuck you. Like I think journalism deserves better in 2018, the internet and stuff.
It does, but this is who we got. Oh god, we're so boned. I do not know how the 2018 elections are going to go. I really do not know. Like, I was kind of, when I left the 2016, I thought, well, fuck, I don't know how this is going to go, but probably Hillary's going to win. Whatever. And then and then she lost, and I was just kind of staring at my just sort of walking through the streets of Portland because I had to attend the NSTA conference at the time, and I noticed the bar was unusually more filled than usual, and I don't think it was just because of the conference. I and now looking at with everything that I know now and everything that has happened since then, I still don't know whether or not the Democrats can win, because honestly, Trump's policies right now should be a game killer for the Republican Party, bar none. They shouldn't even have the remote chance of being able to hold the House or the Senate. But here we are.
Which policies are those? I mean, when you start talking about the Republicans 30 years against like immigrant children, like that speaks, I'm 100%. I do think that's one egregious policy of theirs. What else is it though?
Setting the prelude for a trade war with China, that will probably set some sparks. That's an easy way to get your money canceled out, but it seems so far that seems to be the case at the moment. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm not overtly optimistic about it though. Oh yes, we can't forget about Yemen, which is probably the greatest disaster, which is one of the greater disasters of the Obama administration, which is somehow still being allowed to be a thing, and I do not understand why.
You said it's still allowed to be a thing. Was that the last sentence?
Yeah.
No, that's something that's been going. That's something like a. You know what? That reminds me of. It reminds me of Syria, because we saw Syria coming. We saw it happening. It wasn't like it happened. It was like a tooth infection that happened slowly. It was like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a condition developed. It was like Syria took a while, and it was no surprise. It took literally no one by surprise that things kept, sort of tragedy kept on going there, because it was like ample warning signs, years and years of like, this is coming. And I think Yemen reminds me of that, because it's been a issue with the rebels and the things there for like 5 years or more.
Yep. But fuck. That's all I can say. It's just like fuck.
I still think that the Democrats have no one to blame but themselves if they lose. Period.
Oh, no. I totally agree with you on that. Like the Democrats have no excuse for losing under these circumstances. But the sad part is that I fully expect them to.
You never know. I do expect to go through the same thing again with being ostracized and blamed and like, people snubbing their nose. That's one thing that made me very politically active, was this social justice warrior type I was hanging out with at a bar in Portland. And this guy decided that I was so worthless and undeserving of any acknowledgement after I said that I probably wasn't going to vote for Hillary. This is before the election, after Bernie was out.
No. My brother warned me about this.
Oh my God, this guy was horrible. So horrible. Like, how can you treat someone like that? Like, this person's horrible.
Unfortunately, being for social justice does not necessarily make you immune to being an asshole, which still seems to be something.
It almost guarantees it, actually. It's like, I think everyone should be polite to people. Now I'm going to be horrible to you. I think everyone should be able to think what they want. Now you think what I say.
No, but that's, I mean, part of this is also due to the fact that,
it's fucking insane.
You do know that I tend to be in support of the kind of stuff, right?
I didn't know that. I'm just stating my opinions here, man.
No. I can understand your frustration. I don't necessarily want to just sort of like, erase your experiences with this. But my whole point is that when I talk about social justice, or at least when I try to discuss this with others, my whole general point and purpose with this is that I want social justice for me is about recognizing the dignity of other human beings. And the whole point of engaging
Right on,
in
man.
correctness is that the whole point that we have.
Well, maybe you'll be able to rectify it, but like just like progressive or just like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, like to me, they are a part of a greater struggle, and so I stand in solidarity with them because I believe that the only way to advance general cause of social justice is for those who are interested in it to work together. But
Jamarl less so, but Jamarl and Benjamin Dixon and that guy, what's that guy? He ran for president. He's like this short guy. He has glasses.
wait, the guy? You mean the guy who said the rent is too damn high, or
No, there's this like short guy. He has glasses. I forget his name now because I haven't checked him out in a while. Well, there's another podcaster guy, and like all these people actually were like, I've heard them say things. And, of course, there's always gonna be arguments. There's always gonna be exceptions. There's always gonna be things to say. But I heard them say things that rubbed me so wrong about regarding the Me Too thing, certain Me Too cases, that I totally just like stopped following them, stopped Patreon, and then what is that guy's name? Okay, it's something really specific. So
honestly, I didn't realize there were any other black candidates beside.
no, he's not. I didn't say black guy.
Huh?
I said a short guy with glasses. It's the Lionel, something Lionel.
Oh,
Lionel.
Lionel Nation?
Yep. So that's the specific part, Lionel Nation. Yeah. So I stopped following him, stopped Patreoning him because of something he said about Me Too. I stopped following Benjamin Dixon because of something he said about Me Too. I stopped Patreon. I think I Patreoned him for a month or something a long time ago. But there's another one I just said that Jamarl wasn't as bad. His comment was more, I think, fair. But the other two, I really didn't like it, and it was enough. It was enough that I was like, screw this, I'm not watching Jamarl anymore because I really believe in the Me Too thing, and like for as far as social justice, I think that's an extension of that. And so I think social justice in the right way, like the way you say it, I'm all for that. But unfortunately, it's kind of like Christianity. Like some Christians make you like dislike Christians.
No, like this is the
or have a bad impression.
Nobody hates supporters of social justice more than other social justice supporters.
Like we were talking about politicians, like a Ro Khanna, if he's a kind of a just saying all the things, deliberately and carefully, craftily, just to kind of, self-serving, whatever, self-seek, then he's a dick and he's making it harder for us to, we're more cynical and jaded and jilted and, or just, we're such at a point that it's harder for us to believe in anything. So yeah, it's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And social justice warriors that are the bad ones are making it harder for the good ones. So I could see that.
Well, I mean, you always are going to have debates about practice and what is and what is, what is the best path forward and what it is.
Punching Richard Spencer in the face is absolutely wrong.
I have no problem punching Richard Spencer in the face.
Fucking don't punch. You don't fucking insult people, man. It's fucking wrong. Period. I don't care who it is. Like, really, honestly. Like,
if an asshole wants to.
I mean, yeah, I don't like Harvey Weinstein, but I don't think that people, I don't know if I could control myself from it. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think people should do it. I don't think I should do it. I don't think walk off and
I don't think people should actively. Look, I'm not advocating that people actively punch people in the face.
I mean, he'll get punched in the face a bunch if the justice system does its duty, does its obligation, and sends him to jail.
Well, I mean
and that'll be basically judicially getting punched in the face, right?
Well, if
send it through the justice system.
If the judges care about having an order, having an orderly response to this, to the allegations, that's probably the wisest course of action. But I've long since learned to hold my breath on the intelligence of the American.
So you think it's okay that Richard Spencer got blindsided and punched in the face in public because he was talking? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that would mean that, you know, people who really hate libertarians think it's okay to go punch a libertarian. I think it just overall, it takes away from the civility, it takes away from decency that we all have towards each other, which is bad. But yet a lot of people do think punch Nazi, ha ha ha. I disagree with it fervently, adamantly.
That's fine. You know, here's my thought on that. You know, you do you, boo. If it's a bridge too far for you, I don't think that it's.
Why didn't the guy ask him if he wanted to fight? Why wasn't the guy fucking brave enough to ask him? He's so brave. He's so fucking renegade. So cool.
Yeah.
But he can't square up with somebody and fight. That's fucking horrible.
Like if an asshole wants to suggest that I need to take my place as a second class citizen, I am more than happy to obligate them to introduce his throat to the bottom three of my knuckles. But till that point, I don't think it's anyone should feel the obligation that that just because somebody says something ignorant and stupid, that that makes for sufficient justification to be violent with them. That's not where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I mean, Trump said, you know, I'll cover your legal costs if you punch someone. But then we learned later through Veritas that there was all these instigations. So, you know, it was like a real problem that they were facing. So it's kind of actually that almost casts doubt into like whether Trump was wrong for being like that. Like, if you just have all these people that are provocating or that are actually getting physical with people, you know, which was the case according to Veritas, and like, I mean. So
Veritas is also
run by gray area. It makes it somewhat like, but I'm not. I don't know. Ultimately, Trump is wrong for that. In the end, I think both sides are wrong when they do that kind of thing, or call for that kind of, or you know, it's just like I said, it's just a deterioration of like ability to reach compromises and be rational.
I mean, I'll say this. I do think that. I definitely do think that, you know, using violence as an intermediate solution is usually not a great path forward. However, in the case of neo-Nazis, they don't typically tend to lean towards pacifist solutions as a sufficient and equitable measure of pacification. There's a very famous incident in Britain from I think like the 80s or 90s, where the neo-Nazis essentially gathered support by roaming across the countryside in Britain, up to the point where they attempted to cross across one of the major rivers in over a particular bridge. Let me look this up because this is a pretty famous story.
Cool.
This is a.
I think to me, when you punch somebody, it's like, I can't. Sometimes if you're gonna let your anger go to the point where you punch somebody, it's like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I can't express and explain and describe and relay to you this, so I'm gonna punch you now. It's like, so it's kind of like, you know, it would have been much better, in my opinion, if it's like if you got to take issue with Richard Spencer's like ridiculous, fucking ignorant, you know, racist, you know, just poisonous, vile rhetoric, you know, erroneous, illogical, asshole rhetoric. You're gonna take issue with it. Take issue with it differently. Yeah, that's all. Don't fucking blindside someone when they're, you know, it's fucking horrible. Somebody threw coffee on Alex. I think it might have been a setup stage thing. I remember somebody threw like hot coffee in Alex Jones' face once.
I remember Jimmy spat in his face. That was great.
Yeah, I just remember the hot coffee thing. He was supposedly out on the streets trying to have conversations. Again,
Yeah,
it could have been staged, but I'm just cynical like that. So.
Yeah, he was just trying to be friendly, I'm sure. That's. I'm sorry, that just sounded so incredulous to me.
I mean, I don't really know. I don't know what I think about that, whether it was staged or not. I don't know why you would stage it, but then again, it's Alex Jones.
Yeah.
It's freaking Alex Jones. He's a wild card.
My attitude's the same with the Project Veritas. It's sort of like, yeah, on the one hand, this is pretty damning evidence if this is true. On the other hand, this is also produced by the guy who trolled Acorn into becoming into bankruptcy. So, you know, fuck him.
Okay, I don't know about that instance or reference.
So you do know who the person who founded Project Veritas is, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was referring. So O'Keefe was responsible because he tried to supposedly led a muckraking operation against Acorn. Which he attempted to document the volunteers there of engaging in morally or legally dubious activity by dressing up as a pimp and attempting to get information on on the best advice for human trafficking from Acorn volunteers. And it ended up being enough that it ended up tanking the organization.
So it was like entrapment, or
it turns out that he had
sort of like entrapment or something.
Huh?
So it was kind of like he like set him up and trapped him, or
it was the entrapment bit, and then it was also that he created misleading evidence through the use of editing of the footage to create an illusion that was completely out of the original context under which those conversations were being held. So
I don't feel the need to like go back into that case. And I know what I saw though in the Veritas videos that I watched, and I don't know. I mean, it just depends on those individuals. Like,
I don't know. Like,
were they on the take with the O'Keefe guy, or were they on the take with the way they actually presented themselves? Some of it seemed pretty damn fucking believable.
No, like I find it to be believable, but it's also one of those things that if it were me, I would my suggestion would be take it with a grain of salt, knowing who's giving it to you.
But there would be people out there that want you to feel the precisely exact same way regarding Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And I would say to them, no thanks. I'm not going to feel that way. I'm not going to ignore what was in the WikiLeaks things because it's pertaining to our national election. It's pertaining to our country, our democracy. These people, like if Holly Seeliger feels a responsibility as she described it, as a public figure, then for sure, a member of the Clinton family or Bush family should feel like they're public figures, and so what they do isn't it matters. It's like available for public scrutiny, and if some leaked speech comes out, no matter how it comes out, if it indeed is the transcript from your speech, or if some leaked emails come out between your people in your campaign, we should not pretend like that didn't happen. But we are pretending like that didn't happen, and we through means such as, oh well, you can't trust Julian Assange because blah 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 blah. They don't have anything really legitimate,
right?
As far as I know to say, but they say it anyway.
But the difference, I feel in those
the question is moral or something.
It's just that Julian Assange actually has something of a track record of presenting factual information that can be verified by third-party sources. Whereas O'Keefe has been on the record and has in fact been in jail specifically for falsifying evidence in his practice of journalism. And that's I think
the thing that you told me that in that case, again, I don't really want to hash out and get into that case,
right?
But from the cursory summary that you gave me regarding it,
right,
it seemed like what he was accused of was basically his techniques, that he goes super far in terms of in terms of dressing up and doing these acting and this what is that called, exposés of essentially undercover, what is that called, hidden camera?
It's a muckraking operation.
So, but if he wasn't just like the kind of go above and beyond, kind of go really far and using every single extreme way he can to get the job done and to get in and to do that thing, then maybe he wouldn't succeed. So maybe that's just a part of the way he operates, and he did have to go to the jail for it. So I don't know. I guess I need to look it up more. That sounds interesting. Seems interesting to look. The details might be interesting, actually.
Well, that's certainly one way of looking at it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not the only piece of damning. But I think we got into that talking about how originally kind of how Veritas did talk about a lot, if you watched them, about the people instigating violence at Trump rallies.
Yeah,
that was a big part of it. But I think did Tucker Carlson cover that a little bit?
I don't.
Actually, some mainstream coverage of that. That was cool.
Yeah, my whole point is don't waste your time. Don't waste your time calling everybody a Nazi when you could actually be spending your time more productively actually fighting Nazis. That would be my broader point.
Or don't call everyone a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Unless they really are a Trump supporter. A Trump supporter, because there's not like a different degrees of Trump supporter. You're either a Trump supporter or you're not. Okay. So I think if we could do a great amount to have a civil dialogue in this country between everyone of all political angles and dispositions, if we agree to not call people Trump supporters who aren't actually Trump supporters.
I think that'd be fair. It's just sort of my position is simple. Don't waste your time calling everybody that a Trump supporter, because most likely they aren't. But if you're so hell bent on fighting Nazis, please don't waste your time fighting fake Nazis. Go out there and fight the real ones, if that's what you're actually interested in. And for me, I have no problems with taking the fight to them if that were me, if I needed to. That is not a qualm for me. What I dislike is when people just feel the need to constantly call everybody who they disagree with Nazis, just simply because they don't want to have to deal with the consequences of the failures of their own personal political choices.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to say I posted a link in the thing and it was the wrong link. Okay.
Jeez. Great.
But yeah, go ahead. I was trying to look up something.
No, I pretty much made my point.
So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, like there really are sort of egregious, not sort of genuinely egregious, and you know, like crimes and and sort of like acts out there, right, and people out there. So like when you get too far into just hating someone because they're Richard Spencer or Jordan Peterson, or whatever. I guess in my opinion, to really combat those people, it shouldn't be like a rah 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 mob mentality, like go get them. It should be more like be prepared, stand apart, put yourself like, be better than that, and go about it kind of that way. Stuff.
Oh, Jesus. It's so tired. I think I should probably turn in. It's like 2 o'clock here.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the conversation, Ben.
Yep.
It's wonderful talking with you.
That's good.
Yeah, well,
you guys.
one-on-one conversations are kind of, you can get more into a lot more detail and a lot more personal.
All right, don't forget, there's a Unity for J, the online vigils going on this weekend. So just be aware of that. Thank you guys for coming on and talking. It was nice just listening for once. Sometimes I hate talking. All right.
All right. Thanks,
Good night, guys.
Later. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks everybody on chat. Kathy.